In 1970, we uh, a little buckskin colt was foaled at our farm in Hampton, Iowa. It was by Lucky Roan King, who was the son of Beaver Creek that I'd bought off of Warden Dudley, and made him an NQHG champion when I was 16 years old. And he was out of a mare by the name of Miss News, who was an old war horse, kind of a reining horse that Mike Ulicki had up there. And I kind of learned to ride her as the reiner, and she'd run and stop and turn around. It was just a nice horse. Well, this little buckskin stud colt grew up, and he wasn't the fanciest thing, so we gilded him, and we called him the screwdriver because he was supposed to be a reiner, kind of screwing the ground. I wasn't very clever at that time, and I'd found some drink book, and it was talking about drinks, and the screwdriver was a drink, and I thought, oh, this is going to work good. So we were riding like as a 3-year-old, and we had a facility there in Hampton that had Powder River gates, and the Powder River gate is a big old heavy steel gate. And it was 12 foot long. It was the front of the stall. You'd swing the gate open, and that would let you get in there and clean the stall out or move stuff around. Well, it's about a foot and a half above the ground, this gate was. And this horse one night got down, rolled into it, and rolled underneath this gate. Half of him was on one side of the gate, and half of him was on the other side of the gate the next morning when I walked out there. Didn't take much to open the gate and swing it open, and he stood up. And what I saw was a horse that looked completely different than he did the day before. He had tried to get off on the other side, and every time he pulled his head up, and he'd bring it back down, he would hit the side of the feeder, and the feeder was made out of some native oak. It was pretty hard. It was real sharp, and he cracked the top of his skull to where there was quite a gap up there. And as I got to looking at it, he'd actually cracked the skull, and the eye socket had dropped just a little bit. I took some water and started cleaning it out, and the water that I was cleaning the hole up here above the eye out was running out his nose, and I thought, well, we're kind of in trouble here. Maybe I better take him someplace. So I took him to Iowa State University. And at Iowa State University, I was shoeing for him at that time, and I was going to college. So I kind of had an in, and Dr. Lundvall was the vet down there, and he was world renowned. I mean, he was a great vet, a little crude in his language, but he was a great vet. And the only marks that I could see on him other than his eye was he had a little spot here in the middle of his rib cage where the gate in the middle of the gate had been, and it kind of broke through the skin. Dr. Lundvall looked at him and says, no problem, Jim. He says, you'll be able to pick this up here in a couple of weeks. He says, we'll take care of him. So I called him about 5-6 days later. He says, how's that horse doing? He says, well, you want us to kill this? I said, what do you mean? 5 days ago, you're going to fix him up. Now you want to kill him. What's happened? He says, well, what happened was that he got underneath that gate and he pushed so hard that he ruptured all the cells that were pushed against that gate. It would be like freezing a plant or something. It ruptured all the cells and they just fell off. So that whole 38-inch strip down through there fell off his side. Where the side to the ground pushed so hard, about the size of a large plate fell off. And you could see his ribs. And he said what's going to happen is that the oxygen is going to get to those bones. It's going to make them brittle, and he's not going to have any capacity to breathe. The rib cage is not going to work. Well, he says, you want us to put him down? I said, I really don't want to put him down if I have to. He says, what are my options? He says, well, he's going to need some TLC. He says, I think maybe we'll put him in research down here at Iowa State, and that won't cost you as much that way. So they took him over to the swine barn and tied him in a pig stanchion. A pig stanchion is only, it's about 5 foot across, and they cross-tied him in there. And they put hay in front of him, water in front of him, grain in front of him. And he stayed tied, standing up for 3 months. Now, he was probably bored. Most horses would crib or do something and standing there for 3 months. But he was cross-tied. He couldn't do nothing, but he could lope in one spot. So he'd sit there and just in one spot, he'd just be loping along. All day long, he'd just be loping. And lo and behold, it healed up. Now you could see where the ribs were, and if you hit it, it was like hitting a brick. There was no give there whatsoever. But I kept riding him, threw the saddleback on him, and started showing him, I think, when he was 5. And he was a natural. He's probably had more talent than I did at the time. He could stop, he could turn around, he'd slide 25, 30 feet, he'd run fast, go slow. He was a really pretty buckskin colored horse with a black mane with silver in it. So he was not necessarily conformationally a very well made horse, but he was kind of an attractive horse with his color. But we nicknamed him Alpo because if he couldn't stop and turn around with one eye a little low, all those scars on him, he was going to end up in an Alpo can. So his nickname became Alpo. And I showed him several places in Iowa and Minnesota, and I took him to the Iowa State Fair, and I don't remember, but I think maybe I won the Iowa State Fair on him. But John Barry came up to me and says, "What do you want for this horse?" And at that time, I thought, you know what, $3,500 is a lot for a horse at this time that doesn't look so good out of one eye, especially. And he says, "I got a customer." And so he bought him and sold him to Mickey McQuarrie. And Mickey was a really good kid. And he took this horse and putzed around with him. And he started showing him in some Reinings. And he was the reserve honor roll reining horse of the nation. Back then, we didn't have world's champions. Everybody went for an honor roll title that says you're the best horse in the United States. He showed him... I think he showed him like 80 times, and he won 70 of the Reinings. A phenomenal horse. Be there every day, run down there, stop, turn around. I can remember Mickey coming up to my place and bringing old Alpo along. He was so proud of him. And he stayed with me for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, and I got him bucked off several times up there at my place. He even talks about it now. But I'm at the Congress in 1981, 82. I don't remember anyway what year it was. And I'm at the Congress, and I'm loping my reining horse around, and I hear this thunder coming up behind me. And my horse is a little afraid of horses coming up behind him. So he's starting to dance a little bit, and I'm kind of being kind of perturbed because I hear this horse come up behind me, and I look over here, and as fast as the horse could run past me, it was Alpo. And this little 13-year-old kid was just a gallop, was hanging on. And he ran down there about 50 foot and said, "Whoa," and old Alpo slid his butt to the ground, turned around, and went the other way. I couldn't believe it. He had to be 16, 17 years old. The kid got along with him fine. And that's the last I saw of Alpo for a while, anyway. I'm showing at the pre-shows at Denver, Colorado. And it's cold. It's just January, and we're in the parking lot walking up to the showgrounds. And I see this trailer in the parking lot, this 2-horse trailer with this truck, and this trailer's jumping up and down. And I said, "There's only one horse in this world that can make that trailer jump up and down. That couldn't be." So I walked up there and opened the side door, and here's this old horse sticks his head out with one eye down. Oh, Alpo. He had to be about 20 years old. He was still packing kids around. He's one of them great horses that anybody could ride. He was safe, and he was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And it made me feel so good that so many people got the opportunity to show him and have a good time.